I want to speak here in a minute on Mr. Gensler, but before I do, I want to thank my chairman for making sure that we ultimately got this name to the floor for confirmation. We have really wrestled with this nomination for several months now, and I'm going to talk for a minute about that. But I also want to thank him for coming to Atlanta last Friday. We had a great tour of the new campus, our newly expanded campus at the Centers for Disease Control, where we had the opportunity to talk with the folks firsthand who are dealing with the H1N1 virus. And we both were reinforced about the fact that that issue is in the hands of highly skilled professional people there at the Centers for Disease Control. And Senator Harkin has been very much of a supporter of the CDC for years in his position on the Appropriations Committee. And I just thank him for taking time to come down on a day that was very important to his family and to visit with us and to also hold the nutrition hearing on the CDC campus. We had an excellent hearing, and we're going to be working together to get our nutrition reauthorization bill to the floor in the very near future. Mr. President, I do rise to support the nomination of Gary Gensler as chairman of the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Mr. Gensler's nomination comes at a critical time. Our nation is facing very challenging issues in trying to address this economic downturn. Many businesses, as well as the economy, depend on the commodity markets, both physical and financial commodities, to help manage costs, to hedge against risks, to access liquidity, and to stay competitive. It's a time when we really need these markets to be performing at their best, to be functioning transparently and without manipulation. CFTC has been operating with an acting chairman for approximately 23 months now, and a fully confirmed commission has not been in operation since 2006. This situation is largely due to the recurring politics surrounding the nomination process. While not all senators will ever agree with everything that any nominee supports, I'm very concerned with the need to have a fully seated Commodities Futures Trading Commission. The American people deserve no less, particularly in these difficult times. As Congress seeks to deal with the current economic crisis and examines our financial system, it is absolutely essential that the CFTC and the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry are engaged in the debate. Given our responsibility to ensure that the commodity markets function properly, the CFTC must be engaged in discussions occurring both within the administration and within Congress relative to restructuring our financial system and products that operate within it. The need for properly functioning commodity markets is of utmost importance to those utilizing products based on interest rates, exchange rates, debt, and credit risk. Last year, we witnessed a major market disturbance and a subsequent myriad of theories as to the cause of the meltdown. Economists will study for years to theorize just exactly what caused the economy to buckle when it did. In the meantime, we owe it to the American public to ensure that the regulators who oversee these industries are properly vetted and seated with the backing of the United States Senate. Frankly, this vote has been too long in coming. One of President Obama's first nominations for his new administration was that of Gary Gensler to be commissioner and chairman of the CFTC. His nomination was announced on December the 18th, 2008, and we officially received this nomination on President Obama's first day in office, January 20, 2009. For the last few years, I have witnessed the troubling trend of stalled CFTC nominations. The process starts with the President sending Congress the nomination. The Senate Agriculture Committee holds a confirmation hearing, and that's as far as it goes. In the case of Gensler, two of my Senate colleagues placed a hold on his confirmation, which in terms of Senate procedure effectively stalls the nomination in its tracks. This has happened with almost every nominee to the commission in recent years. With Senate approval of this nomination, our job is still far from complete in ensuring that the CFTC has a full slate of commissioners. We currently have 2 commissioners with expired terms. I would encourage the President to quickly send us the nominations of the 2 remaining commissioners so that we can act quickly on both of them. And it's my understanding that the President, if he hasn't sent one of those nominations over today, that he's going to be sending it over today. I urge him to send the second one so we can deal with both of them at the same time, and for the first time in several years, have a fully confirmed and seated Commodities Futures Trading Commission. With respect to Mr. Gensler, I've had the opportunity to visit with him, to go through his hearing with him, to observe him. He's qualified, he's capable, he knows the issues, and he's prepared for the job. I urged all of my Republican colleagues to vote in favor of this nomination because I think this is one time where we have the opportunity in a bipartisan way to say to the President, if you send us reasonable and qualified nominees, we're not going to stand in your way, we're not going to be obstructionists, we're going to help you put the right kind of people in place. And I'm very pleased to say that since we've had the vote today, every single Republican who voted today voted to confirm Mr. Gensler. And let me just close by talking for 1 second about the comments that my colleague from Iowa, Senator Harkin, made with respect to the overall financial markets and our need to modify some of the regulatory process. I agree with him that we need more transparency in the market. We don't know, and I don't know that we'll ever know, what caused this meltdown last year. But the one thing I do know is that as policymakers, we have an obligation to make sure that when someone buys a product on a commodities market, that they can have the assurance that somebody from a regulatory standpoint is looking over the shoulder of the individuals who administer those markets, and that when they buy something, it's exactly what it's been sold to them as being, and that they can have the assurance that they're going to have the opportunity, with the risks that they have taken, to see that product either rise in value or sometimes go lower in value. But it will be their decision that causes that, and not some manipulation of the market that causes that. The chairman and I have some disagreements over the direction in which we go, but there is no disagreement of the fact that there needs to be more transparency in the market. There are some customized products that are going to be very difficult to regulate, and we've got to be careful that we don't stifle markets in this country. They've worked well for decades and decades and decades, and they will continue to work well if we make sure that we've got the right policies in place and that we don't let the federal government get too much engaged in the process to the point to where these individuals who make the decision to trade on markets inside the United States get the feeling that the U.S. government is becoming too engaged in the process, and therefore they're going to take their business elsewhere, which they can do. Every product that's bought on a market in the United States can be bought on an overseas market. And it can be bought from New York City or my hometown of Moultrie, Georgia, just as easily as it can be bought on a U.S. market. And we've got to make sure we regulate those markets in the right way, but that we don't over-regulate them so that we drive those customers overseas to markets, and that we continue to encourage a strong and viable commodities market in this country. And as we move through the process of seeking to change our regulatory process, I look forward to working with the chairman as well as any number of other members of this body who have a lot of information about this issue. And believe you me, it is an extremely complex issue, but it is one that we need to address, and we need to make sure that at the end of the day, we've done our work in the right way, and in a way that's going to be complementary of the markets, and not in a way that's going to be conflicting towards the markets. So with that, Mr. President, I would yield the floor.